time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Today is a day for mourning and remembering. Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger.
The following program may contain coarse language, adult themes, and bad attempts at humor. Listener discretion is advised.
What is President Trump's goal? What is his vision? He wants to put an American flag on Mars.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
I am your host, JEFF, also known as A Cosmic Bard over on X, and this is the Lost Wanderer podcast for May 4th, 2025. Happy Sunday evening, and welcome aboard my ship, the ACS Serenade. Now, while most folks are out busy celebrating a galaxy far, far away, let's take a moment to salute something a little more real, the 35th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope. Launched on April 24th, 1990 aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery, Hubble has spent 3.5 decades quietly changing the way we understand the universe. It circled Earth more than 180,000 times, made over 1.6 million observations, and unlike most of us, actually is getting better with age. Of course, it didn't start that way. Its first few years were rough. Thanks to a flawed mirror, its early images looked, like someone smeared Vaseline on the lens, like, some 80s and 90s pop stars. But in 93, astronauts fixed it during a daring servicing mission, a spacewalk-worthy moment that literally brought the cosmos into focus. And from there, well, let's face it, it's been nothing short of legendary. Hubble has given us the iconic pillars of creation, jaw-dropping shots of galaxies smashing together, and even helped measure the universe's expansion rate. It helped confirm the existence of dark energy. It spied on newborn stars, and it looked so far back in time it might as well tap the shoulder of the Big Bang and asked for a light. Now, to celebrate its 35th birthday, NASA dropped a fresh look at the Eagle Nebula, a revisitation of those famous finger-like columns of dust and gas. And you know what? Still majestic, still humbling, and still better than 95% of science fiction box covers. But here's the part they didn't put out in those nice glossy photo releases. Hubble, it's on borrowed time. The last servicing mission was in 2009. Now, it's been holding up, but just barely. NASA doesn't currently have any plan to extend its life despite proposals. Meanwhile, SpaceX has floated the idea of sending up maybe a private Crew Dragon to service the telescope, maybe swap out some worn components, boost it maybe to a little more of a, stable orbit, and keep the lights on just a little bit longer. Now, it's a cool idea, but that said, there's no agreement, no plan, no budget. Just right now, a suggestion. So let's be kind of clear here. Fixing Hubble isn't kind of a plug-and-play, let's get it resolved issue. The telescope wasn't built for remote repair. Every past service call was done by highly trained astronauts who practiced for months to handle the instrument's delicate systems. Doing it again, robotically or with a private crew, would take serious effort, money, and perhaps the hardest part, political will. But here's the kicker, in my opinion. Hubble is still worth it. 35 years it's been orbiting up there like the world's most powerful time machine, quietly turning photons into perspective. It's helped shape an entire generation's understanding of space, science, and what is out there. It's not some toy, although they do make some really cool toys of it. It's not a branding stunt. It is a scientific monument. And if we're smart, we won't just let it fall back to Earth and burn up like yesterday's TikTok trend. If you're looking for a symbol of what space science can actually do when we fund it, aim it, and shut up long enough to let it work, Hubble is it. So here's the 35 years, and hopefully a few more. Now, coming off a bit of the high of Hubble's 35th birthday, unfortunately, it's time to talk about the not-so-fun part of space exploration: money. Or maybe even more specifically, less money. The Trump admin's latest budget proposal calls for a nearly 24% cut to NASA's funding for 2026, a reduction from $24.8 billion with a B to $18.8 billion with a B. And yeah, that's kind of a big hit. But we probably shouldn't hit the panic button just yet, because buried under the headlines is a bigger question. What are we actually funding? And is it even working? Let's start with the Space Launch System, or SLS, NASA's mega rocket that's been in development since 2011 and still flies slower than a Jawa sandcrawler on a hot day. You'd think I'd go an entire episode without making a Star Wars reference. You were wrong. This plan would cut off SLS and its Orion crew capsule after Artemis 3, arguing the costs are just too damn high. And frankly, they're not wrong. Artemis 3 hasn't even launched yet. Artemis 2 hasn't even really launched yet. And we've already poured in more than $50 billion across the program. Meanwhile, SpaceX has been prepping Starship for a rapid reusable lunar flight, and private contractors are building lunar landers, cargo systems, and orbital tugs for a fraction of the cost. Now, cutting SLS doesn't mean cutting the moon. It means, well, we're just going to start flying smarter. The proposal also pulls back from the Gateway lunar station and Mars sample return, favoring commercial alternatives and robotic exploration. Now, I gotta admit, that's a little controversial, but again, maybe it is overdue. The Mars return mission is decades away and budget-starved. Gateway has shifted designs more times than the Millennium Falcon dodging a tractor beam, so maybe a timeout isn't necessarily surrender, it's just a systems reboot. Now, yeah, there are some genuine losses here. There are some STEM education funding that takes a hit, and not all of STEM is necessarily bad. And you have some earth science programs that are getting squeezed, some for the benefit, like, climate monitoring. But that's where the cuts do feel a little short-sighted, in my opinion. Some of these programs are low cost and deliver actually more of an impact than I think some people realize. But that said, giving real data to real people is essential, and maybe it isn't about NASA doing it and slashing them. But does it turn NASA into a one-trick rocket ship? No, I don't think it does, but I can understand the concern. But overall, this isn't some sort of apocalypse. It's a philosophical shift, one that says NASA should focus on high-value science and exploration and let private industry handle the heavy lifting whenever and wherever possible. And that doesn't mean abandoning bold missions at all. It means prioritizing which ones are worth it and who's best equipped to run them. It also means we stop funding hardware for the sake of appearances and start demanding results. So yeah, there is actually plenty here to debate. Some of these cuts are surgical. Others feel maybe they were just used with one of Elon's flamethrowers. But either way, it's not about giving up on space. It's just about rethinking how we get there. And maybe, just maybe, cutting some bloat means we'll finally launch more than we actually promise. So now that we've slashed nearly a quarter of NASA's budget and trimming big ticket programs. Well, what's next on the chopping block? Well, this one's a little controversial too. How about saving astronauts' lives? Now, it's not controversial to save them. It's how we save them. Now, in a move that sounds like something out of a Dilbert and Space comic, NASA just announced it's exploring options to privatize astronaut rescue services. Al, I know you were thinking about junk removal. We got a new angle here we can tackle. Now, to be fair here, this isn't really as insane as it might initially sound. Yet. Traditionally, if a crewed launch went sideways or a capsule splashed down in the wrong part of the ocean, the U.S. military, specifically Detachment 3 of the Air Force, was the one to scramble everything. Think helicopters, pararescue jumpers, fast boats, full medical teams, real kind of Black Ops adjacent hero stuff. But under this new proposal, NASA wants to hand some of this, if not all, responsibility off to private contractors or even academic institutions. That's right, your next astronaut rescue might be brought to you by a university grant or some sort of startup with a snazzy logo and 3 people on payroll. That said, the goal, they say, is flexibility and cost savings. And look, I get it. The rise of commercial spaceflight, you have SpaceX, Axiom, Sierra Space, and a whole bunch of other acronym soups. It does mean we're getting more launches than ever. I can't even do it in segment with rocket launches anymore because they're so damn frequent. So maybe it is time to rethink how we do the rescues as well. But we have to be honest about the stakes here. This isn't delivering snacks to the ISS. This is high-speed emergency response across the Atlantic Ocean and others, with the lives of astronauts hanging in the balance. Now, NASA is asking these potential vendors to hit some serious benchmarks. They have to reach water landing zones within 24 hours. They have to be able to provide full medical stabilization and triage, secure and extract crews safely, and transport them to a hospital if needed. All of this while coordinating with government agencies, tracking systems, and international flight corridors. And of course, the main hope is that this can be done cheaper than what the military currently charges. But this does raise a bit of a few questions. What kind of training will these private teams get? Will there be standardized drills and certifications? And who's responsible in the horrible event that the rescue team screws up? But there's another kicker to all of this. NASA isn't even guaranteeing a contract yet. They're just requesting information. I mean, someone's going to burn a lot of time and resources pitching a solution for a problem that may or may not be outsourced at all. Now, I'm not against commercial solutions when they work. I mean, SpaceX has proven this. But this is a bit of an astronaut rescue, not your typical DoorDash to the ISS. If we're going to privatize it, it better not be to the lowest bidder doing triage with some red-green kind of duct tape and a CPR app. That said, if we can't actually create a fast, reliable, hybrid response network, public, private, and international, this could be a real game changer. More missions, more risk, smarter safety nets. Honestly, this is the way forward, in my opinion. But if this turns into Space Bay Rescue Services proudly powered by some new crypto, I swear I'm just going to say screw it. I'm going to book passage to Europa on my way home to Alpha Centauri. But the real story is we're not just redefining how we go to space. We're also going to be redefining who gets you home. And while I think this is an improvement, we better get it right. So while NASA is now debating who's going to fish astronauts out of the ocean back here on Earth, we still have that little thing called Mars in our neighborhood. And, in particular, the Curiosity rover, still grinding away on Mars like the solar-powered tank that it is. And it just dropped a clue that makes you want to stop and ponder things. According to a new analysis, Curiosity has found something in the rock record that might be one of the strongest pieces of evidence yet that Mars was once habitable. Not just, had some water habitable. We're talking the kind of environment where microbes could have set up shop and called it home. What was this big find? Iron-rich carbonate minerals. Now, I know that all doesn't really sound sexy, but hang in there, please. Carbonates form when carbon dioxide mixes with water and certain kind of rocks. That reaction doesn't happen in dry, frozen wastelands. It happens in places with a thick atmosphere and liquid water. Two things Mars hasn't had in a very, 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 very long time. And we've been looking for carbonates for years. Because if you want to prove Mars was more than just a cold, dusty ball, this is the stuff we need to know. These minerals are like little fossilized receipts that says, yeah, you know what? This planet once had real weather, real rivers, and possibly even real life. That said, let's not get completely ahead of ourselves. The Wong family farm needs to be built on the moon or even in Mars. This doesn't mean that we're going to get little green men fishing in Martian lakes or history of it. Still could. But it does suggest that billions of years ago, Mars had the chemical ingredients to support microbial life. Now, these carbonates were found in a crater called Gale Crater, which used to be a lake bed. That means this wasn't a one-time fluke. This was a whole ecosystem, or at least now the skeleton of one. So why does this matter? Because when we ask, was Mars ever alive, we're really asking, how rare is life in the universe? If Mars had it, even briefly, yes, maybe life isn't as special or as fragile as we once thought it. Maybe it happens even more often than we once possibly dared to hope. But here is where it gets complicated. Curiosity can only drill so deep, and it can only analyze so much. It doesn't have the tools to look for organic fossils or actual microbial traces. That job might fall to the upcoming Mars sample return missions, although they may have just gotten axed by the next budget shuffle, so who knows? But for now, we have a huge cosmic breadcrumb. Unfortunately, not the full loaf. Still, it is a big deal. And it's a reminder that even after a decade of crawling around the Martian dust, Curiosity is still living up to its name. I mean, think about it. The rover has survived dust storms, broken wheels, software updates from 100 million miles away, and it's still sending back clues that could reshape what we know about life in the universe. And all of that from a robot that is the size of a Mini Cooper, powered by a battery that could have come out of Doc Brown's garage. So yeah, while billionaires are arguing over who gets to land on the moon first, and NASA debates which contracts to cancel, we still have good old Curiosity up there doing the work, quietly, relentlessly, and turning rocks into revelations. The kind of explorer that reminds us the truth is still out there, if you're willing to dig a little. And as if rockets to the moon wasn't enough, things have just gotten a little bit more interesting in South Texas, because apparently SpaceX's home base just leveled up. Starbase is officially a city. That's right. After years of pushing for it, Elon Musk and the team at SpaceX got their wish. The unincorporated Boca Chica village has now voted to become a real municipality. The vote passed by a landslide, 212 in favor, 6 against, which, yes, I know. Try to be honest, try to be factual. It does mostly reflect a population made up of SpaceX employees and leaseholders. But still, we can officially say, welcome to Starbase, Texas, America's first rocket town. And yes, the zip code 69420 is available and unused. Now, that said, this isn't just a branding stunt or a roadside attraction. Starbase actually now has the legal status to govern itself. What does this mean? Well, setting ordinances, managing infrastructure, and potentially having a say in how future launches are now managed. It's a bold move, and it puts SpaceX one step closer to a model where cities and spaceports could actually be one and the same. Now, there is some legit concerns floating around this. Some locals and those hippies in the environmental groups have pushed back over the years, worried about access to beaches, coastal erosion, and cultural preservation. Others are watching closely to see how much authority this new quote-unquote city has when it comes to things like public closures and launch safety protocols. And it is going to be a balancing act. You have economic development versus public access, innovation versus regulation. But we should give credit where it's due. SpaceX has transformed what was once a quiet stretch of shoreline into one of the most active launch corridors on the planet. It's brought in jobs, investment, infrastructure, and attention. And now, with Starbase being incorporated, the company is signaling it's not just staying, it's going to build a community. And the city's existence could also be a model for the future. Think about this. A launch facility that doubles as a place to live, work, and collaborate. Engineers, scientists, technicians, and families all building the next frontier together. It's the kind of vision that feels a little more sci-fi than city planning, but here we are. And you know, Elon is already thinking bigger. Because if this is the first starbase on Earth, what's the second one going to be called? You know, its sister city on Mars? Will it be Muskopolis, Red Vegas, or New Austin? Or maybe just Starbase Prime, population whoever survives the first winter. Now I get it, jokes aside, this is an inflection point. We're watching a company stake out not just its launch pad, but its home turf. And whether or not this model sticks, stumbles, or evolves, it's clear. The age of static government-run space centers is giving way to something a little more agile, a little more integrated, and a whole lot more ambitious. As long as the balance stays right between private vision and public interest, Starbase could actually be the prototype for the towns we're going to build on the moon, Mars, or whatever rock we land on next. And yes, that is how we get Eureka. But while SpaceX continues building cities out of launch pads, the business of space logistics doesn't stop, and neither does the appetites of the astronauts, the real astronauts, up on the ISS. On April 21st, my executive producer's birthday, a 4:15 in the morning, because SpaceX and other places love launching windows that don't care about, me sleeping or anything. SpaceX launched its 32nd cargo resupply mission to the ISS. The CRS-32 flight lifted off from Kennedy Space Center on a Falcon 9, marking yet another flawless ascent for the now routine orbital workhorse. Riding on top, of course, is Dragon, now not the fire-breathing kind, but the cargo capsule that basically has become NASA's orbital U-Haul. And this Dragon was not a rookie. It's flown 4 times before, making this its 5th round trip to space. At this point, it's practically on a first-name basis with the ISS docking port and probably has her phone number. Now, the mission was originally supposed to be a mix of science and supplies, but thanks to a hiccup on the Cygnus resupply mission, damage during shipment, classic stuff, the manifest got reshuffled. So instead of flying cutting-edge labs and deep space telescopes, Dragon showed up with the stuff the crew actually needs to survive another month in orbit. Food, hygiene, tools, clothing, and tortillas. That's not a punchline, because tortillas are a space staple. They don't crumble like bread, they're shelf-stable, and they make excellent impromptu sandwich wraps for everything from peanut butter to tuna to rehydrated beef stew. Astronauts love them. One flight without tortillas, and morale dips faster than a satellite on a bad orbit. That said, it wasn't all pantry items. It did deliver some sharp scientific tools, including 2 atomic clocks for testing fundamental physics, like Einstein's theory of relativity. Drink, because who doesn't want to do a little time travel on the weekends? These super precise timekeepers will help refine how we measure time and space, and potentially pave the way for better navigation both in orbit and beyond. Also aboard, an upgraded air quality monitor to keep track of trace gases, including any mystery molecules from experiments or long-forgotten SOX, and some plant biology experiments designed to figure out how vegetation reacts to space conditions. Because if we're going to grow spinach on Mars, we need to know whether it's bolts, wilts, or mutinies. Now, that said, it did dock successfully on the 22nd and will hang out on the station for about a month. After that, Dragon will return to Earth loaded with completed experiments, used gear, and whatever isn't really nailed down, because even in space, recycling is king. Now, what's remarkable here isn't just the hardware or even the mission count. It really is the rhythm. SpaceX has turned the extraordinary into the routine. A resupply mission to orbit used to be front page news. Now, it's a line item on the launch calendar that hopefully includes food so Jeff can talk about it. But let's not let the familiarity fool you. This is how the foundation of a permanent human presence in space gets built. Not with a flash, not with flag planting, but with tortillas, air filters, and science payloads that quietly make tomorrow possible. Before we dive face first into some more orbital nonsense, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break here aboard the ACS Serenade. So go stretch your legs, recharge your neural capacitors, and enjoy my new track, Signals in the Dark, a little something for those drifting between stars and static. And when we come back, it's time once again for Assholes in Space! And let's just say the International Space Station might need to swerve a little because a certain debris-spewing space agency that rhymes with Hyena is making headlines again. So don't go far. We've got orbital dodgeball waiting for you after this break.
Static from its sleep, coded pulses through the void, looking for a mind that dreams. Woke the static from its sleep, praying silence can't be employed. Galaxies don't bend or break, they drift in spirals just like thought. I scream into the great opaque. Galaxies don't bend or break, but every signal I've sent forgot. There's someone else who speaks our tongue. Are we echoes of a song unsung, or just the watchers at the gate? All our gods are ghost transmissions, carried light years past their graves. All we lost are on a mission to be the noise that silence saves. Every question's just permission to pierce the veil with gamma Do we matter in this sprawl of stars, or just the math of carbon dust? Could there be hands behind those bars? Do we matter in this sprawl of stars, or just minds dreaming what they must? Repeating the call, unanswered, unbroken, still we
And welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry, I had a handful of things I had to do at the intermission break, so that was a little longer than normal. I do apologize for that. That said, it's time for everyone's favorite orbital mess hall food fight.
And now, assholes in space.
Chinese asshole. Chinese asshole. Chinese asshole. Chinese asshole.
So what happened this time? You might be asking. Well, on April 24th, the ISS had to fire its thrusters to dodge debris from, you guessed it, a Chinese Long March rocket stage. And this wasn't just a heads up and shrug. This was a scheduled maneuver at 8:22 a.m. Eastern. The ISS adjusted its orbit using Russian progress thrusters to avoid what NASA politely referred to as a piece of space junk. And I gotta figure out what's going on here. Okay, let's give this a shot. Sorry about that. It seems like my volume really took a nosedive here. Try to get that fixed for you. Please amuse yourselves while I do this. Okay, let's do this. So let's call it what it is, a busted Chinese rocket part left to drift in orbit like a broken beer bottle in a zero-G bar fight. And sadly, this isn't new. The ISS has had to dodge orbital debris over 30 times since 1999. And a good chunk of what comes from two sources, defunct satellites and China's habit of blowing things up in orbit. Remember, the 2007 anti-satellite test. That thing created thousands of pieces of long-lasting space junk, and it's still out there. This latest maneuver was a success. Nobody floated into a wall, no solar panels were clipped, but it's just another reminder of the tightrope act that is low Earth orbit. There are thousands of active satellites, dead satellites, upper stages, paint chips, tool bags, and probably a frozen wrench and a tortilla from 2002 tumbling around up here. And sadly, when one of them threatens the ISS, which, by the way, still houses a rotating crew of international astronauts doing everything from growing lettuce to testing dark matter sensors, it's not just annoying, it's dangerous. One bolt at orbital space could punch a hole clean through a station module. And this isn't science fiction, that's basic physics. We're one careless launch or deliberate explosion away from turning the sky into a no-fly zone of high-speed death confetti. Great name for a band, by the way, Death Confetti. So yeah, congrats to the IS crew and the ground teams who executed the avoidance burn perfectly. You danced out of the way of yet another orbital bullet, fired blindly by a space program that still can't seem to figure out the whole don't litter in orbit thing. At some point, somebody's going to have to clean this up, Al, or install windshield wipers on the next space station. Until then, we just have to keep dodging, keep tracking, and keep updating the who almost killed the ISS this week leaderboard. By the way, China's in first place. Now, coming out of our last segment where the ISS had to prep for another game of avoid the flaming Chinese space garbage, God, I hate on this segment. We have to give credit where credit's due. Because while the orbital debris may be their unflattering headline, China also just pulled off a picture-perfect crew handoff to Tiangong Space Station. The kind of baton pass any relay team would envy and doesn't require clubbing someone on the back of the head with. So let's start with Shenzhou 19. That's the crew of Kai Jiaji, Xiong Lingdong, and Wang Yuzi, who spent the last 6 months aboard Tianyang running experiments, maintaining the station, and performing some high-altitude acrobatics, including a 9-hour spacewalk. And that is one of the longest China has ever done, and in full pressurized suits, mind you, not your average gym session. And the ride back, of course, a capsule that re-entered Earth's atmosphere on April 30th, touching down with a controlled parachute descent in Inner Mongolia. No cows were killed, at least not reported. A little wind delay pushed landing back a day, but hey, when you're in space for 180 days, what's really another 24? And right as they were packing their bags, Shenzhou 20 launched from a Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center on the 24th of April, a week ahead, of course. Shendong, a veteran of Chinese space program, led the new crew alongside two fresh-faced astronauts, Xin Zhangru and Wang Ji. The two arrived in Xi'an after a breezy 6.5-hour orbital chase, docking cleanly and stepping aboard their new orbital home before the coffee even got cold. Now, their mission, another 6 months running science experiments focused on life sciences and fluid physics, installing gear, and likely performing a couple spacewalks of their own. And let's be honest, probably not flinging rocket parts in the crowded orbital highways while they're at it. Maybe. But in all seriousness, this kind of seamless crew rotation is really no small thing. It shows that Xinyang is now in true operational phase. This is a fully functioning space station, supporting long-term missions and planned launches, successful returns, and international observers watching closely. And if you're wondering why this does actually matter, it's because China's future ambitions hinge on proving that they can do this over and over and over again without incident, at least, in low Earth orbit. Getting there, that's still iffy propositions from time to time. So that means deep space exploration, a cislunar economy. You really can't build that without mastering the rhythm of orbit. And right now, the orbit part, they're kind of in a rhythm. So credit, of course, where it is due. Not all news from China's space program invokes ducking for cover. Most of it does, but not always. Sometimes it is just a clean pass, a crisp handoff, and a reminder that the new space race really does have a lot more runners than it used to. But we're not quite done yet. We're not done with the Assholes in Space segment. After a graceful Chinese crew swap, we now turn our attention to the other major player in the who the hell thought this was a good idea space category, and that is Russia. Because just when you thought things couldn't get weirder in orbit, a couple of Russian military satellites decided to reenact the opening of GoldenEye without the charm, soundtrack, or even the accountability. Earlier this month, two Russian military satellites, Cosmos 2535 and Cosmos 2536, which have been in a suspicious little dance together since 2019, suddenly released a new object into orbit, quietly, unannounced, without telling the international community or really anyone. The U.S. military spotted it using tracking systems designed to detect these space-based threats. And make no mistake, this wasn't some accidental ejection of a spent battery pack. It was deliberate. This new object, designation Object-T, is now floating in close proximity to its satellite parents. What is it? What is it doing? And why is it there? Well, nobody outside of Roscosmos and the Russian Ministry of Defense seems to know. But let's be honest, when Russia's satellites programs birth a mystery object, it's probably not, a bowl of petunias. Now, the last time this happened, in 2017, a similar mystery object was believed to be capable of rendezvous and inspection maneuvers, or worse, maybe something a little more aggressive. Think orbital proximity operations, both a side of paranoia and a little bit of old Cold War spice. But we got to remember, space is no longer just about science and selfies with Earth in the background. It's about surveillance. It's about disruption, and probably even more so, orbital advantage. And that means when a country launches a classified satellite that starts spitting out surprise packages, the rest of us get a little itchy and twitchy. Now, to date, there really has been no explanation, at least from the Kremlin, just radio silence from the same folks who brought you the no-duel missile, the satellite shrapnel cloud of 2021, and those charming Soyuz leaks aboard the ISS. Now, we're not necessarily this is some kind of orbital weapon test. If it were, this is exactly how it would start, though. A sudden deployment, a tight orbit, vague intentions, and a whole lot of denials until someone's GPS goes offline. And if you're wondering, well, surely there's some international community that will hold them accountable, right? I got a Soyuz toilet I want to sell you if you believe that. So, yeah, Russia has once again earned a recurring spot on this segment. Not for some spectacular catastrophe necessarily this time, but for adding one more mystery object to an already dangerously cluttered orbital shell without warning, coordination, or even a care. At this rate, we're going to need a new orbital category: inexplicably suspicious debris adjacent to known jerks. Because when you're operating in a domain where one bolt can punch a hole in that $2 billion spacecraft, you don't get to play coy about mystery tech. But with that, we're going to shift gears a little back to the folks who actually give a damn about building the future and not breaking it. Enter Firefly Aerospace. Yeah, I know. Their latest launch didn't quite stick the landing or, even make orbit. But before we get to that, let's say up front, Firefly is one of the good guys. They're scrappy, they're ambitious, they're innovative, and they're still kind of punching above their weight in a field where even the giants trip up. And on April 29th, Firefly launched its 6 Alpha rocket dubbed Message and a Booster from Vandenberg Space Force Base. Its job was to deliver a Lockheed Martin tech demo satellite in orbit. All was going well. Clean liftoff, crisp stage separation, and then the upper stage said, "Nope, I'm out." And the engine nozzle extension literally detached mid-flight. That's really not, what's the word I'm looking for here? Yes, thank you, EP. Ideal. Thrust dropped, trajectory slipped, and instead of delivering to orbit, the mission ended with a controlled splashdown near Antarctica. Now, while that's not a success in the mission patch sense, it was a safe flight. No uncontrolled breakup, no debris cloud, and most importantly, a kind of a odd way of looking at this, but it's true, a data-rich failure, which in rocketry is sometimes as good as a win. So now, yes, the FAA has grounded Alpha pending review. That's standard. Firefly is cooperating with the FAA, Space Force, and Lockheed to figure out what went wrong, and more importantly, how to prevent it next time, with no cover-ups, no ghost payloads, just transparency engineering and course correction. And they'll bounce back. Why? Because this isn't their first stumble, and every time they come back swinging a little harder and a little better. Let's not forget, these are the same folks who landed their Blue Ghost lunar lander, the same team with 25 planned launches through 2029 for Lockheed Martin, and the same company getting love from the Texas Space Commission with grants and infrastructure expansion. So I'm going to be honest with you. If you caught the live stream, if you were like me, you weren't just watching the telemetry numbers. You were probably keeping one or both eyes mesmerized by the brilliant commentary, infectious enthusiasm, and let's just say it, the jaw-dropping presence of Morgan, affectionately dubbed by fans as the Rocket Hottie. Take that, Last Blue Origin crew. Now look, I'm semi-joking. I mean, she is a hottie. She does work on rockets, so she is a rocket hottie. We celebrate science here. But if passion, brains, and stunning delivery help pull a few new eyes toward the stars, we're all for it. Morgan, that is, not the thing that happened with Blue Origin launch that was sponsored by Aquanet. Not that one. The one that actually has hot ones in it. So yeah, Firefly's rocket had a bit of a hiccup, but the mission wasn't a complete loss. It was just a chapter, because in this industry, every flameout is a prequel to a breakthrough. They'll be back, and when they are, we'll be watching with telemetry on one screen and Morgan on the other. So while we do absolutely believe science, stars, we do also, when we're not looking at rocket hotties, we occasionally will giggle like middle schoolers when the universe happens to tee one up for us. And guess what? We have one that teed up for us, because this week NASA caught a rare and revealing glimpse of Uranus. That ice giant with the unfortunate name finally stepped into the limelight, or more accurately, stepped in front of it. For on April 7th, Uranus passed directly between Earth and a distant background star in what astronomers call a stellar occultation. Translation: for a brief shining moment, Uranus blocked out starlight. Now, despite the chuckles, or maybe because of it, this is a huge deal for planetary scientists. These rare events are kind of like a planetary medical scan. When the light from a star passes through the upper atmosphere of a planet, we get a chance to study the composition, the temperature, and dynamics of those high-altitude layers in incredible detail. And this wasn't just one telescope and a grad student in the desert somewhere. NASA coordinated a full planetary stakeout, 18 observatories, over 30 scientists, all with eyes locked in on the same patch of sky, hoping to catch Uranus in action. Why? Because this kind of occultation doesn't happen often with a planet like Uranus. The last solid opportunity to study its atmosphere was back in 1996, when flannel shirts were in and so was dial-up. So this was kind of big. And what made this especially valuable was the angle. This was a side-on occultation, meaning the star passed behind the rings in atmosphere at just the right sliver to let scientists analyze how light was observed, refracted, and scattered by the gas layers of the planet's upper atmosphere. So let's be honest, half of us were here for this segment for the science, and the other half just wanted to see if we'd get through the segment without a single cheap joke. We almost, did. We tried. We really, really tried. So yes, we got to peek at Uranus from the side this month. But more importantly, we got a rare fleeting moment where the universe lined up just right to let us peer a little deeper, ask smarter questions, and maybe chart a course for future missions to a planet that's been orbitally ignored for far too long. So here we are, rounding the edge of the program, and wouldn't you know it, if Uranus wasn't enough, the ghost of Planet 9 is back. Because when the science news cycle starts to quiet down, there's always one trusty fallback. We think we might, maybe, have found possibly something that maybe could be sort of Planet 9. Again. Now this time, the latest teaser comes courtesy of a 23-year-old cosmic breadcrumb trail, stitched together from 2 infrared sky surveys. IRIS back in 1983 and Akira, which ran from 2006 to 2011. Astronomers decided to do a forensic resweep of that data and found the mysterious cold object moving slowly. Very, very slowly through the sky. The calculations suggest it's a distant, dark, and massive. Sounds familiar? That's because every Planet 9 theory basically boils down to, hey guys, it's big, it's far, and we swear it's out there somewhere, maybe, possibly, sorta. Now, it does get a little messy. This particular object's orbit is tilted at a ridiculous 120 degrees compared to the solar system's nice flat playing field. Now, this doesn't scream Planet 9, that screams, what the hell is that doing here? Could it be a rogue planet that wandered into our system, a mini brown dwarf, a distant Kuiper object, doing donuts in the void? Yes, it could be, but it doesn't really match the long-standing model for Planet 9's orbit, which it doesn't. Then it's probably not the mythical heavyweight that was, supposed to make sense of the weird motions of everything past Neptune. But even if it were, let's be crystal clear on this ship. We already have a 9th planet. It's called Pluto. It's been there the whole damn time. It didn't ask to be demoted, and it's doing just fine with its icy heart, methane skies, and devoted fan base. This whole Planet 9 business, it only got legs after Pluto got booted. Thank you, NDT. It's cosmic rebound science. We've lost one, so let's imagine a bigger one, farther away, and maybe one we'll finally eventually see, even though we have the Pluto, the 9th planet that we can currently track. Now, I get it. The astronomy behind this is kind of solid. It's a legit hunt, backed by clever analysis and patient comparisons of faint signals across decades. It's the naming. That's where the problem is. Don't call it Planet 9. Call it Planet Maybe. Hell, call it Planet What's-Its-Face. But don't try to slap a number on it when you erase the real number 9 in the first place. Until this mystery rock shows up at the planetary family reunion with a respectable orbit and a better altitude, Pluto still and forever will hold that seat, and we're never giving it up. Now, before we head into our stargazing forecast, let's check in with something a little more terrifyingly majestic. For there's a magnetar, a kind of neutron star with a magnetic field so strong it could erase your credit card from 500,000 miles away and rip your atoms apart if you get a little, get in the same neighborhood. It doesn't like you all around here, if you take my meaning, Mr. Frodo. It's called SGR 0501 plus 4516, but let's be honest, galactic zombie star just rolls off the tongue a little better. And this stellar revenant, it's on the move, barreling through the Milky Way at over 110,000 miles per hour, which, for reference, is way too fast for something that could turn your molecules into abstract art. Now, before you pack your towel, you don't need to panic. It's about 15,000 light years away, so it's not exactly, rounding Alpha Centauri with murder in its magnetic heart. But it's still kind of an incredible object. Why? Because unlike magnetars, this one might not have formed in a typical supernova. Researchers think it may have been born from a direct collapse of a white dwarf, which is like skipping the explosion and going straight to, hello guys, I'm death now. So we've got a hypermagnetic undead star hurtling through space, probably with no idea where it came from or where it's even going. Basically, it's the universe's version of a metal album cover. It's a reminder also that out there in the void, things don't just shine and twinkle, they roar, burn out, collapse, and somehow still keep going, like Keith Richards. Some stars will fade away, others, they just put on a hood and start running like hell. Okay, crew, it's that time. Let's grab your drink, step into the hull of the ship, and start gazing outwards through the night sky. Because it's time for the part of the show where we stop tracking debris and start tracking destiny. This is your stargazing forecast, brought to you by the stars, the moon, and a galaxy not quite as far away as advertised. So if you got skies, you've got plans. We're going to dim the console lights, tilt your chair back, and get ready to lose yourself a little. Because for the next 2 weeks, the sky is putting on a little bit of an opera, and you don't even need a telescope to catch the best seats in the house. We start with the headliner because my executive producer, now that he's 17, hates my guts. We have the full flower moon rising on May 12th. This moon has been blooming in Native American sky lore for generations. And in honor of our executive producer's cruel joy in watching me struggle, we will include the real names. In the Anishinaabe language, it's known as the Wabigwen Nigizis, or the flowering moon. The Cherokee call it Anuda Onada Noni, or the planting moon, because this is the time when the earth wakes up and you get your hands dirty. I don't know why he hates me now. I really don't. And if you've got clear skies on the 12th, step outside just after sunset and look to the southeast. She'll rise full and bright, and if you have time, and if you time it right, you'll catch her low on the horizon, all honeyed and golden, like a whispered secret. The other sky treat, the Euclid's meteor shower. It peaks May 5th and 6th, and if you're up before dawn, away from streetlights, you might see up to 30 meteors per hour. Fast, graceful arcs from dust trails left by none other than Halley's Comet. That's right, old Halley still knows how to light up a room, even if we haven't seen the bastard comet since 1986. Best viewing time is 4 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. facing east-southeast. Bring a warm drink, a reclined chair, and probably a bit of patience. The sky will reward those who wait. And finally, a diva is leaving us. Venus is gone. No sign of the morning star right now. She slipped behind the sun for a while. But don't worry, she'll be back. And you know when she comes back, she'll make an entrance because that's what divas do. So that's it for tonight's show. Thank you for tuning in when and however you do. Special thanks to NASA, SpaceX, Space.com, Ars Technica, NASA Spaceflight, Popular Mechanics, and more for the great information on the stories tonight. Stay tuned for Sunday Night with Alan Ray. Thanks to my executive producer, as always, for your help and inspiration. I hope you enjoyed the show, learned a little bit, and maybe even had a laugh or two as well.
The universe is a pretty big place. It's bigger than anything anyone has ever dreamed of before. So if it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space. Right?
When I was young, it seemed that life was so wonderful, a miracle. Oh, it was beautiful, magical. And all the birds in the trees, well, they'd be singing so happily, oh, joyfully, oh, playfully, watching me.